They didn't stab him. They didn't strangle him. They sealed him alive inside a coffin of molten lead and dropped him into the sea. The water boiled as the metal met the waves, and with one hiss, the empire erased its boy emperor forever. This was not the act of barbarians or invaders. It was done by his own blood. In the shining heart of the Byzantine Empire, beneath golden mosaics and marble domes, the greatest city of Christendom became a stage for one of history's most chilling murders. Alexios II Komnenos, born in 1169, was heir to an empire that stretched across the eastern Mediterranean. Son of Emperor Manuel I, grandson of conquerors, child of palaces. At his coronation, he was barely old enough to hold the scepter, yet already surrounded by wolves in silk. The Byzantine Empire, then the jewel of the world, glittered with wealth and power. But beneath its surface, it rotted with envy, betrayal, and deceit. To many nobles, the boy's youth made him an easy puppet. To one man, it made him the perfect victim. It was the year 1180 when Emperor Manuel I Komnenos died, leaving his 12-year-old son to rule a restless empire. His widow, Maria of Antioch, a Western-born Latin queen, took the reins as regent, and the court hated her for it. Her accent, her foreign ways, her favor toward Westerners. The streets of Constantinople seethed with rumor. The palace guard shifted its loyalties, and from exile, a serpent returned. Andronikos Komnenos, Manuel's cousin, famed for charm and cruelty in equal measure. He rode toward the capital with honeyed words and iron ambition. Andronikos promised reform, justice, an end to corruption. The people adored him. They saw him as a savior come to cleanse the empire. Crowds chanted his name as he entered the city. Yet behind his smiles lay a lifetime of treachery. He had betrayed kings, seduced queens, and murdered friends. Now he had his eyes on the throne itself. He courted the nobles with gifts, the army with coin, and the people with promises. But one obstacle remained. One fragile, innocent obstacle. The rightful emperor at Alexios II. At first, Andronikos played the loyal guardian. He visited the young emperor often, speaking softly, calling him my son. But each word dripped with poison. He whispered that his mother's advisors plotted against him, that Maria's Latin heritage would destroy Byzantium. Then came the accusation. The Empress Maria was charged with treason, accused of plotting with Western crusaders to overthrow her son. The charges were false, but it didn't matter. Guards seized her within the palace, and soon her body was found strangled, cast aside like refuse. With the regent dead, Andronikos declared himself protector of the realm. The boy emperor was forced to sign decrees he couldn't understand. His own signature sealed his doom. The throne he sat upon was no longer his. It was a trap of marble and gold. At 14, Alexios was surrounded by enemies smiling through their teeth. Servants vanished overnight. Advisors fled. Even the palace priests kept their distance. Andronikos' guards watched his every move, waiting for the signal to strike. One night, the sound of boots echoed through the palace halls. Torches flickered against gilded walls as soldiers burst into the emperor's chamber. They dragged the boy from his bed, his cries echoing off the marble. No one dared intervene. No one spoke his name aloud again. He was taken under guard through the cold corridors of the great palace, past mosaics depicting saints who could not save him. Outside, the night wind carried the scent of salt and smoke. Down by the harbor, a single ship waited in silence, its deck glinting with metal under torchlight. There, on the deck, lay a leaden coffin. Freshly forged, its edges still warm to the touch. Soldiers moved around it like priests at a ritual. A blacksmith poured molten lead along the seams, testing its seal. The emperor's fate had already been decided. They forced Alexios inside. The walls burned his skin. He screamed for mercy, but none came. The lid slammed shut. The clang of metal echoed over the water. Then came the hammering, slow, methodical, as molten lead was poured to fuse the seams. Each drop sealed away the last breath of an emperor. As the coffin glowed faintly in the torchlight, soldiers chained it with iron hooks. The sea below churned, cold and dark. On Andronikos' command, they heaved the coffin over the rail. It struck the surface with a hiss that turned into a long, drawn-out scream of steam. The lead cooled, trapping air and heat inside. The boy suffocated in darkness and fire. No prayers reached him, no angels came. When the weight finally sank, the sea swallowed him whole, emperor, child and legacy all at once. By dawn, word spread through Constantinople like smoke. The people who had once cheered for Andronikos now whispered his name in fear. They had wanted justice. Instead, they had crowned a monster. And for the first time in memory, the empire's great harbor lay still and silent. Andronikos held his coronation days later. He wore the same imperial crown that had once rested on the boy's head. He smiled before the altar, calling himself chosen by God. But in the crowd, faces turned away. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Something in the air had changed. Cruelty, once unleashed, never sleeps. Within 3 years, the empire turned against him. His tyranny drove even loyal men to rebellion. When the mob finally caught him, they dragged him through the streets he once ruled. His eyes were gouged, his flesh torn. The people devoured their own emperor. The death of Alexios II was not a single act of madness. It was the symptom of an empire rotting from within, where ambition meant survival and mercy meant death. The child emperor became a symbol, a warning etched into the memory of Byzantium itself. Encased in lead, he became both relic and curse. His body may have vanished beneath the waves, but his story rose again whenever another ruler turned on his kin. In the empire of faith and splendor, it was not the barbarians who destroyed the crown, it was family. Power had become poison. And in the glittering city of Constantinople, where saints gazed down from mosaics and angels lined the domes, one could almost hear the faint bubbling beneath the sea, where the last breath of a boy emperor still waits, trapped in lead. History remembers the screams, but forgets the silence that follows. What would you have done, standing on that deck, hearing the sea claim a child? Would you have turned away, or tried to stop it? Let me know your thoughts, and stay with us for the next descent into darkness. If you thought this was horrifying, wait until you hear about Next, the man molten gold poured into his throat, the gruesome death of Marcus Licinius Crassus.